Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
We've all been there, right? That moment when the desire, it comes back.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got an idea, a vision, maybe a yearning for something bigger.
A professional pivot, a creative project, anything.
And the logical thinking part of your brain says, yes, absolutely, let's go.
But then you move to act, and it's like your body just slams on the brakes.
A deep internal resistance, a real reluctance to try again.
And that's exactly what we're doing a deep dive into today. We're exploring a courage practice that isn't about overriding that resistance.
It's about working with it.
Exactly. We're drawing on some really powerful insights from the work of Helen Madiba.
Specifically on how to use these internal maps to move toward what you want, especially when your nervous system is just saying, nope. I want to start with the core insight from her reflection because it changes everything about how you see this.
It really does.
It goes, most people are not afraid of failure. They're afraid of what failure taught their body about safety. So even when desire returns, the nervous system hesitates.
Just let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
It's so transformative because it immediately shifts the blame.
Right.
We stop telling ourselves, oh, I lack discipline, or I don't have enough willpower.
And we start to see the resistance for what it is, a physiological memory.
It's protection. When a past attempt, maybe a job that ended badly, or an investment that just failed.
Or a relationship that collapsed.
Right. When that resulted in pain or rejection or loss, your nervous system filed that away. It learned that that specific movement equals danger.
And you can feel it the moment you even think about taking the step, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
As you're listening right now, just think about that thing you want. And notice what happens inside.
It's often this feeling that's been called the braced still.
The braced still, yeah. Your chest might tighten up a bit.
Your breath gets shallow.
Your shoulders start creeping up toward your ears, and suddenly your brain is just flooded with 17 urgent, completely unrelated things you have to do right now.
Anything but the one thing that actually matters.
Exactly. And that bracing, that physical reaction, that's the ancient alarm system going off.
And this is the crucial part. It's being triggered by the memory of past danger, not necessarily the presence of a real current risk.
That's such a key distinction.
Helen Madiba really highlights this complex truth about healing. You might be objectively safer now. You might have more resources, be more stable.
You might understand the whole pattern intellectually.
But you stand at that threshold of action, and the body still throws up that ancient red flag.
And it is so frustrating because you feel like you've done the work, you've processed it, you've analyzed it, and yet the body just refuses to move.
And what we're dealing with there is what the piece calls protection that has not yet updated its intelligence.
I love that phrasing.
It's perfect, right? Your cognitive brain is running on today's data, but your body's threat assessment system is stuck back in, 2018.
The moment that original failure got stored.
Right. The nervous system hasn't integrated the fact that this time you have tools, you have agency you didn't have before.
So the challenge isn't about finding some magical courage. It's not about waiting for a feeling of bravery to show up.
No, it's about showing the nervous system, gently, that movement can be safe again.
So this deep dive, it's not an invitation to be fearless.
That's a total myth.
It's an invitation to be oriented.
Yes.
The goal is knowing where you are internally when that fear rises up, knowing what belongs to you and what belongs to the past.
And most importantly, knowing your return address.
The return address.
Yeah.
That phrase is so central to this whole idea.
It is. The mission here is to empower you to move toward what's calling you, while knowing exactly where and how to come back if that internal alarm takes over.
You take the step not because you know it's going to work out,
but because you know you have a safe internal system you can use to stabilize, integrate what happened, and then go again.
We're learning to work with the fear.
Using it as data instead of letting it be a complete roadblock.
Okay, so if the body is in this braced still, this state of paralysis, how do we even begin to introduce movement?
Well, you have to make it so small that it doesn't trigger the full-scale panic response.
And that brings us to what the article calls the one-step experiment.
And the beauty of this idea is just its humility. It is explicitly not the big leap.
It's not the final commitment.
No. It is simply one honest step taken to gather information.
That distinction feels vital.
It is.
Okay.
When you frame something as an experiment, The emotional stakes just drop dramatically.
You're taking action as a researcher.
Right, not as someone whose entire self-worth is riding on the outcome.
So what could that one step look like?
It could be sending that drafted message you keep deleting and rewriting.
Or making that one specific inquiry you've been putting off for weeks.
Sharing a preliminary idea before it feels perfectly polished.
Applying for that opportunity even when you read the qualifications and feel completely, intensely unready.
And this reframes the whole goal. The purpose isn't success, it's learning.
We're trying to gather new data.
Data to update the nervous system's intelligence. If the step goes well, great, you continue.
But if it doesn't?
You're invited to, and this is a quote, return here with new data instead of self-judgment.
So this deep dive, these frameworks, they become the return address.
Exactly. It's the place you come back to integrate and stabilize instead of collapsing into that old story of, see, I failed again.
It really reframes the whole concept of courage.
It does. Helen Mediva's argument is that courage isn't some personality trait you either have or you don't.
It's a skill.
It's a skill you develop as your inner state changes. It's the capacity to tell the difference between an old wound and a present manageable risk.
Okay, but to make that distinction, you need a map, right? You can't navigate this kind of resistance if you don't know where you are.
Precisely. So we're going to use 3 interlocking frameworks that create this really cohesive map for navigating fear.
A map for locating your internal state and then choosing your action wisely.
Let's start with the biggest one, the compass that tells us our internal altitude, the pathway to sovereignty.
We've touched on this framework before in other conversations.
We have, and for anyone new, it's less of a rigid ladder you have to climb and more like a dynamic map of your internal landscape.
And the key idea is that courage doesn't wait for your external circumstances to be perfect.
It grows as your inner state shifts from reactivity toward response.
Let's walk through these 6 inner territories, because knowing where you are when your body braces is really the first step.
It is. We start at survival. This is the state where fear just takes up all the space.
Everything is reactive.
Completely. Perception narrows, and you're fully in the 4 F's: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Fight and flight are pretty obvious, but freeze and fawn are so relevant to the resistance we're talking about today.
They really are. Freeze is that braced still. We mentioned total paralysis, but it's often masked as perfectionism or chronic over-preparation.
You're busy being stuck.
You are. And fawning, in a professional or creative sense, can look like excessive people-pleasing.
Like over-apologizing for taking up space.
Exactly. You're trying to manage everyone else's potential discomfort at the expense of your own needs. In survival, moving forward feels impossible.
From there, you might move into seeking stability.
This is where you're trying to build safety through external control. You avoid risk, you wait for certainty, you gather endless information.
Always waiting for that perfect moment that never comes.
And the deep trap here is mistaking safety for purpose. You build this comfortable ceiling over your head.
You're productive, you're responsible, but you refuse to take any step that might destabilize that hard-won comfort.
Because you're trying to eliminate fear entirely before you act, which is, of course, impossible.
And the real work, according to the article, starts when we shift into self-awareness.
This is the turning point. In self-awareness, you start noticing the pattern instead of just being in it.
You recognize the body's reaction, that tight chest, that shallow breath.
And you begin to ask the question, is this an old wound talking, or is this present reality? You're observing, but you don't necessarily feel like you can change it yet.
Which feels like the toughest boundary to cross, moving from just awareness into the next territory, integrity.
Integrity is defined by values-led movement. Self-awareness is recognizing the fear. Integrity is acting in alignment with your values, even while the fear is present.
It's choosing congruence over comfort.
Yes, you don't feel ready, you feel the dread, but you choose what matters more, your purpose, your direction, over what feels safe right now.
So if integrity is the action, then wholeness sounds like it's about the internal state required to sustain that action.
That's a perfect way to put it. Wholeness is the capacity to hold 2 opposing things at once.
The fear and the desired direction.
Right, holding them at the same time without collapsing into either one. It's like you feel the anxiety, but you keep your hands on the wheel. The tension doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, it means you're doing it right.
And the final territory is freedom.
Which is that felt capacity to move again and again without being trapped by the old reflexes, because you now know you can return to steadiness.
Okay, so that's the pathway. But when we're overwhelmed, we need something more immediate.
We do. We need to know where to put our energy. And that leads us to the second map, the circles of influence.
And this is really the practical definition of that return address, isn't it?
It is. It clarifies where our power actually lives and where our effort just creates suffering.
It helps you find the small, critical piece that is fully yours.
So let's define the circles. First, the circle of no influence. This is what you cannot change.
The past, other people's feelings, their choices.
External outcomes. Trying to micromanage this circle just leads to exhaustion.
Then there's the circle of limited influence.
This is what you can shape indirectly. Your tone, the quality of your effort, the likelihood of success. You do your best here, but you have to release your attachment to the results.
Because too many other factors are at play.
Exactly. And that brings us to the most important place, the circle of full influence.
This is the return address.
This is your ground. This is what is fully 100% yours, your state. So how you regulate your nervous system.
Your values, what you choose to prioritize.
And your next action, the one step you take. When everything feels chaotic, you come back here.
You regulate, you clarify, and you choose. That's where you find your agency.
It is.
But what about in the heat of the moment? When the alarm is blaring and your mind is racing.
Right, you need a simple, immediate stabilizer. And that's the third map, the practical tool, the CALM framework.
Calm. Okay, I like the sound of that.
And it's an acronym. A simple 4-step pause for that exact moment when your perception narrows.
It gets you back to your circle of full influence.
That's its only job.
Yeah.
So the C is check the story. What narrative is my mind running right now?
And it's usually catastrophic, right? I made a mistake. I'm not ready. They're going to judge me.
Absolutely. You're not arguing with the story. You're just naming it.
Okay, then A is acknowledge the impulse.
What does my body desperately want to do? Run, hide, apologize, create some other urgent task.
And you just acknowledge it without acting on it.
Yes. That simple observation creates a tiny bit of space between the stimulus and your response. It stops the old reflex from taking over.
Then L is locate the state.
And this is where the pathway map helps. Am I in fear? Am I in habit? Or am I in clarity? Is this my survival reflex or is this my present wisdom?
And finally, M is move wisely.
Guided by your values, operating only from your circle of full influence, what is the next aligned action?
And it might just be taking one breath.
It often is. It's choosing a non-reactive response instead of letting the alarm run the show.
Okay, let's hold these three maps. The pathway, the circles, and calm, because now we need to see them in action. Let's move from the map to the territory.
Let's do it.
Our first story is about Noemi, the one who waited for permission. Noemi was, by all accounts, highly capable, thoughtful, careful, responsible. But underneath all that, she had this strong secret desire.
To lead or to launch a creative project that felt like it was really hers.
And her method for getting there was just endless preparation. She waited for more experience, more clarity.
She was trying to engineer 100% certainty before she made a move.
Which in her mind was just being mature and responsible.
But the collapse, as these things go, it came quietly. An opportunity she'd been circling, a perfect role she had mentally prepared for.
It passed her by because she never actually applied.
She was waiting for that external permission slip. You are now ready. And of course, it never came.
She was just left with this painful realization that her potential was useless without action.
She had chosen the safety of waiting over the terror of trying.
So looking at her through the lens of the pathway to sovereignty, where was she?
Her hesitation lived squarely in the lower levels, but it was dressed up in acceptable clothes.
She wasn't fleeing, she was freezing.
Right. Her internal state was rooted in survival, a deep belief that visibility was dangerous. But she lived day to day in seeking stability.
Mistaking caution for courage.
And turning preparation into a ceiling. Her conscious mind thought she was waiting for readiness, but her body was waiting for an impossible guarantee.
She was stuck trying to control things in her circle of no influence.
Exactly.
So the shame of that lost opportunity became the push she needed. The hurt of inaction finally got louder than the fear of trying.
And she pivoted. She chose the smallest possible step, reaching out to one person in her desired field with a single, unpolished question.
Not a pitch, not an application, just an inquiry to gather information.
And this is the pivot point. The second she pressed send, her nervous system reacted exactly as we'd predict.
Immediate physical response.
Chest tight, heat rising, mind flooding with regretful stories. Why did you do that? They'll think you're incompetent.
But instead of letting that surge make her retract or apologize, she paused. She used the calm stabilizer.
She had to check the story. And the narrative was loud and clear. I made a mistake. I'm exposed. I will be judged.
Catastrophic thinking.
Pure survival mode. Then she acknowledged the impulse. Her body wanted to retract the message, apologize, shrink back into invisibility.
Back to the familiar safety of the brace.
This is so hard, recognizing the impulse isn't wisdom, it's a reflex. She had to locate the state. She realized it was fear dressed up as self-protection, an old script.
It was habit, not clarity.
And from there, she could move wisely. And her wise move was incredibly small.
It was just to let the discomfort be there.
So hold the tension and not let it dictate her next action. She trusted her values growth, connection over her impulse for immediate safety.
And that decision was her breakthrough.
It was her move into integrity. It wasn't about confidence. It was about choosing values even with fear present.
Which then allowed her to move toward wholeness, holding the fear and the direction at the same time.
And her nervous system learned a profound lesson from the data she gathered.
The person responded kindly.
And exposure did not lead to collapse. The real danger wasn't rejection. It was living in a version of safety that required her to abandon her potential.
Wow. The reflection for you, the listener, then becomes, where are you waiting for certainty instead of taking one step?
Are you letting preparation become a form of paralysis?
Okay, our second story is about Lena, the one who left too early. Lena was the picture of adaptability. Everyone admired how easily she moved, new city, new job, new version of herself.
She embraced change, and it looked like freedom.
But that ease of movement was actually masking a deep survival reflex.
Flight. At the first sign of friction or discomfort, a tough boss, a relationship issue, she planned her exit.
She confused escape with genuine freedom.
She did. She created her stability through distance. She controlled her environment by never staying long enough for things to get really challenging or really intimate.
She could always perform independence.
But the pattern eventually became undeniable. She'd find herself in a new city, but with the same internal tension, the same feeling of vague wrongness.
She was exhausted from starting over.
And she realized she was running from herself, from the necessary work of meeting complexity.
So her pattern was rooted in seeking stability, but a stability that was dependent on never facing conflict.
Right. She had learned that staying in difficulty meant getting hurt, so leaving was her default. It protected her from pain, but it also kept her from real depth.
Her pivot came when that urge to leave surfaced again, this time over a challenging job that had massive growth potential but was really hard.
And instead of reflexively looking for plane tickets, she paused.
She decided to use the frameworks to look at the impulse before she acted on it.
So she used CAM. She had to check the story. And the story was very rationalized.
This situation is wrong. Leaving is the wise choice. Staying is settling.
Exactly. Then she acknowledged the impulse. A desperate need to escape the discomfort and return to the safety of distance.
The safety of being unattached.
And when she located the state, she had this huge realization. She was acting from habit, not clarity. It was an old script that equated discomfort with danger.
And that clarity let her use the circles of influence map.
Yes. She saw she was trying to manage the situation's inherent imperfection by leaving it.
Which is outside her circle of full influence.
Totally. The friction wasn't a problem to be solved by distance. It was information showing her where she needed to grow.
So she had to return to her circle of full influence.
Which was managing her response to the imperfection, not trying to find a perfect friction-free situation.
She chose to regulate her state, clarify her values, confidence, connection, and realize those required staying.
And that move brought her into wholeness. The practice became staying present with the discomfort without abandoning herself.
She learned to tolerate uncertainty.
And realized that true freedom wasn't the absence of difficulty, but the ability to choose her response to it. Staying revealed a capacity for depth that her flight pattern never allowed.
Stillness revealed what constant movement had been hiding. So the reflection for you is, where do you leave to avoid discomfort rather than meet it? Our final story is about Joel, the one who only moves under pressure.
A very common pattern.
Joel was incredibly productive, but only when driven by external urgency. Deadlines, crises, last-minute heroics.
His survival pattern was the adrenaline spike. He had learned somewhere along the way that relaxation was dangerous.
And that constant vigilance was necessary.
So he manufactured crisis, busyness, urgency, overcommitment to feel alive and purposeful. He mistook exhaustion for meaning.
The collapse for him wasn't a failure, it was the opposite. It was the quiet weight of success.
The big crisis was over, the deadline passed, and he was left with quiet time and a feeling of being profoundly lost without a threat pushing him.
He was stuck in seeking stability through constant activation. He truly believed he needed pressure to function.
But underneath that was a deep avoidance of having to define his own purpose. Without the adrenaline, he was terrified of his own internal vacuum.
The pivot came when he recognized that urge to manufacture urgency bubbling up again.
His mind started scanning for small, meaningless problems to fix, just to feel that familiar spike. But this time, he used Kalem.
He had to check the story, and his was brutal. I'm lazy, I need pressure. Without a crisis, I'm useless.
He identified it as a demand for external validation to motivate him.
Then he acknowledged the impulse. He saw it wasn't about true productivity, it was about escaping the discomfort of having to choose his own direction.
When he located the state, he saw it was a deep-seated habit, mistaking adrenaline for purpose, rooted in a fear of what stillness might reveal.
Not clarity.
Not at all.
So he used the circles of influence to recalibrate.
He saw he had been seeking purpose in the circle of limited influence, other people's crises. He had to return to his circle of full influence.
He had to define his own direction, his own values.
For Joel, moving into integrity was the deliberate choice to define his direction based on his values, not on adrenaline.
He had to trust that meaning could exist without urgency.
Which led him to freedom, the ability to move based on his own intention, not the push of an external threat.
And his one-step experiment was so simple.
Counterintuitive for him, but simple. He worked on a deeply meaningful, self-directed project for 1 hour a day.
Even when his body was screaming that it wasn't real work because there was no crisis.
He learned that the quiet steadiness of intention was the fertile soil for real, sustainable purpose.
The reflection for Joel's story is this. Where do you rely on pressure instead of clarity? These three stories, Noemi, Lena, and Joel, they all confirm this core truth from Helen Mudeba's work.
That the obstacle isn't the external event.
It's the interpretation of that event, which is shaped by that survival memory stored deep in the body.
And that's the critical synthesis for this whole deep dive. The world didn't change first for any of them.
Their inner state shifted first.
They didn't wait for all threat to be removed. They learned how to create steadiness inside the situation.
Recognizing when they were operating from a 5-year-old memory instead of present reality.
And that practice is the essence of courage.
That small, repetitive practice is what rewires the nervous system. It shows the body through action that movement, even with fear, can be safe.
And aligned.
So that brings us back one last time to the clear return address.
When you feel that tightening, that rush of urgency, that impulse to retreat, where do you go?
The return address is always your circle of full influence. It's always accessible.
When you feel lost, you return to this zone and stabilize by focusing on the 3 things that are fully yours.
Regulate your state.
Clarify your values.
And choose your next wise action.
And remember that these frameworks we've talked about, the pathway, the circles, even this deep dive itself.
It's a place to return, not a place to stay.
Exactly. You take the one step, you try the thing. When the fear rises, you come back here to stabilize, integrate the new data, and then you go again.
You're just building that core skill of courage.
I want to leave you with this thought, something from the article to really sit with as you think about your own next step. I'll offer it slowly. Just let it land. Clarity does not arrive when fear disappears. It arrives when the body feels safe enough to move with fear present.
Just take a pause with that idea and ask yourself, what is the one honest step I'm willing to try this week?
The smallest, most informed step. Just to gather information.
Not to guarantee success.
And if you're looking for support in building this practice of returning to yourself, Helen Mudeba has created some incredible resources for exactly these moments.
You can find her free guided meditation and integration guide, which is called Where Am I on the Pathway to Solvency?
And it's a practice designed to help you locate your inner state and just gently return to steadiness.
There's also her journal, Your Path to Choosing Joy.
It's a 21-day journey focused on defining your values and setting aligned intentions, which is really the foundational work for choosing direction over reactivity.
So remember this as you approach the threshold of your own desire. You are not ready because success is guaranteed. You are ready because you know how to return, learn, and go again.
Climb the staircase, breath by breath. With compassion and presence, we rise from stress. From fear to peace, from shame to grace, climb the staircase to sovereignty. When you feel unsafe, too much to bear, you shut down or flare, you vanish or glare, your heart beats fast, your breath runs tight, you just want out or to make it right. That's survival, the you that just wants to survive.
What you feel is complete powerlessness, a cry for safety, not for success.
Climb the staircase, breath by breath, with compassion and presence we rise from stress, from fear to peace, from shame to grace. Climb the staircase to sovereignty.
When you feel the pressure to fix or prove, you hustle hard, you never stop or move. You shrink your voice to keep control. You manage the threat, but it takes a toll. There's stability, the you that's trying to keep things intact.
What you feel is the pattern unwind. You are no longer lost in the mind. Climb the staircase, breath by breath. Let presence be your steady lift. From fear to peace, from shame to grace. Climb the staircase to sovereignty.
When you feel the courage to live what's true, to honor your values and what